Let's see. Just want to make sure you can hear me on there. Perfect. So everything we're going to talk about, all the links and a whole lot more, you can access through this link that should be showing, newclassroom.com/AIFPG.htm. So newclassroom.com AIFPG.htm. And Renee, if you get a chance to enter, that would be awesome. So newclassroom.com AIFPG.htm. That's going to be the resource for this presentation. And it's what you're looking at right now, which includes the warm-up, some bonus stuff, the PDF of this presentation. So the entire PDF is there. Where to contact me. This is the kind of the article from the Aspen Institute that inspired the 13 sections I've taught with AI embedded since before ChatGPT was free. And that's kind of that little piece. And for those who are looking to have roles justifying or finding budget for AI related, this is from the AI Summit presentation that I presented at last semester. It's 10 reports from August 23 to January 24 on the impact of EDU and workforce and AI. Everything from LinkedIn's analysis, Microsoft's analysis, higher ed, a survey of 1,250 students, and we'll talk about that and their attitudes. So this is your one-stop shop for everything related to this with regards to the FPG. And again, for those who are applying for FPG, you do need to do the activities and be signed in and all of that stuff. And we've got a group here. As I ask questions, feel free to post them on chat. We'll definitely look at them. And the main thing we're going to do is, instead of focus on group work, we're going to do like a homework as part at the end so that the online people can do it as well. And it's an hour and a half with a small break. So just again, newclassroom.com, AIFPG.htm. That's your support site for this presentation. So I'm going to begin. Let me just start my timer. All right, so thank you for coming. This is hosted at the CTLA here at Chandler Gilbert, and the wonderful people who do the Week of Gratitude, Renee and Tricia, thought it would be kind of an interesting thing, you know, assuage fear and be grateful that it's not taking our jobs, because it's not, but it is changing our jobs and the horizon. And that's where the focus will be. For those who submitted questions, I use that to choose from a slide deck. This is the 18th EDU AI related presentation I've done. 6 have been for private companies because I do consulting, and then the rest have been for Maricopa and some others. So I chose slides and I chose topics, and those 6 topics listed there based on the questions and based on practicality. So I'm not going to do too much theory. I'm going to have you understand some of the basics of AI, but focus on where it intersects with what you do. So that kind of will be how we'll approach it. Did anyone do, or any of the warm-up exercises, either the Myers-Briggs type questions? Did we get anything that was interesting? Did you think it was right? Like I got analyst. Team player, anything else? Taskmaster. So I think that's about it. Anyone got anything else different? So that's designed by Microsoft, who have embedded Copilot in everything. As of last week, if you have Windows 11, you now have or are on track to have Copilot, whether you want it or not. So Office 365, where it has incredible abilities and potential for good and abuse. They're still in the pay system, and the district hasn't approved that through our version. So if you have a private Office 365 at home, and it's not, you will see it come up probably in the next upgrade, but they are charging for now. We'll see how that, because really it's a money war between them and ChatGPT and Bard and all these other things. But you're going to see it everywhere. It's going to be in the laptops that students use. It's going to be in Office 365, and now Google, not to stay behind. Does anyone know how much money is at stake in the competition between Google, Microsoft, and to some degree, Meta, Facebook, AI? They estimate a $3 trillion competition over the next 4 years. So as you can imagine, that's going to guide a lot of decisions. So Taskmaster, all these different categories are categories they want you to use to be able to sell you things. And that's one of the things we'll also discuss, how to resist the hype and how to focus on making sure that you drive the AI use, not just in your classrooms, but as a consumer, because that's a very big deal coming up. Okay, so these were the 4 imperatives identified by Campus Technology regarding AI use. So responsible AI, that just means that it looks at what it can do wrong and can do right. Institutions need to invest in skills. Again, that's part of what you're seeing here. I'm part of 2 groups. I'm part of the AI task force at District. I'm also part of the 2040 Maricopa Community of Practice, where we're trying to see what will education be in 2040 and how do we reverse engineer to run that. Advancing AI innovations, we'll definitely show you some of that, and I'll have recommendations. And then AI will expand upon teaching and learning and beyond, and we're already there. That's the bottom line. So just for Valentine's Day, just to give you an idea of where AI is showing up, that's GPT-2 creating Valentine's Day candies with some of the things like Wicked Eat a Tree candy as Valentine's candy. So it didn't quite understand. That's 2020. And then the other side is from 3 hours ago today, talking about how ChatGPT is integrated in dating apps, Tinder, Grindr, and everything in between, hookup apps, Match.com. And we'll even talk a little bit about biases in that, because who gets to see who gets chosen? That's all algorithms, and now algorithms are being tweaked by AI. So there's your Valentine's Day gift. Completely. And the first part of that article is people are selling a service, a premium Match.com service that boosts your chances of being recognized by the algorithm and matched. It tells you what to say, and it even picks the pictures that appeal to what you say you want to appeal. This is where we're at in the background. So is student AI use really that widespread? Well, what do you think? Have you been seeing it out there? Hey, has anyone from chatting seen it out there? Has anyone posted anything? Yep, please.
Created and some of them are check.
So you're running into people using it based on the hype and interest that not necessarily knowing what to do with it. Excellent. Please. There you go. So we'll keep that on the down low so that you're not facing AI ethical considerations. Absolutely. Gotcha. So all of those are the norm. Yes. See, that's the smart approach, and that's going to be integrated into AI sooner than later. So yesterday, just announced yesterday, ChatGPT, which is the common one, now has what's called a memory feature, which means you can tell it after you do a search or you tell it how you want things to show or information or what sources to use. You can say, remember it, and it will use that as part of its training. So you're training it not on the internet comment sections, but you're training it on what you like. So if, let's say, you've trained it on find me great vacations for the spouse that loves this, it will remember that. And when it's generating that Valentine's Day card, will now understand those factors. So it's going to get more specific. Students, and this was an article in Chronicle of Higher Education, say, we're not using it the way you think you are. So there's that. And there's good and bad on that. And then common fear of, is it going to usurp what we do as teachers? It will change what we do as teachers, but it has the potential in specifically developed products for cheating to be able to play around in ways that we don't want. So has anyone either online or here tried any of these to discourage writing? So GPT, as it interferes with student learning, that's the main part of abuse beyond, academic severity or cheating. Has anyone used a warning discussion with your students? And you can just raise your hands here. Okay, great. Walkthrough of what an example cheat paper looks like and how you detected it. One of the most effective strategies for deterrence is to have that walkthrough conversation, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. See, you're like you'll be like the master martial artist who teaches the student most of the tricks, but not all of them. And it's been determined in several studies already that the deterrence factor of walking through and showing that the class could detect this as AI is better than using an AI detector automated machine or strategy. Because the accuracy, does anyone know what the accuracy now is of the current GPT of catching cheating?
It's not as easy anymore. My first year was easy. Now
30%.
30%.
So that OpenAI removed, and I see someone posted about that, correct? OpenAI, who owns ChatGPT, removed their tool because at 30%, they couldn't guarantee that it was being accurate. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Other strategies requiring screenshot of sources. Okay, screenshot, it's a time delay mechanism that generally will discourage it just because the people who really will use it or misuse it worse are the ones who are submitting at 11:59 on that midnight deadline. So if you discourage that by something as basic as give me screenshots, it's a real easy adaptation to future-proof against AI cheating. And what was that? Was there something on chat or no?
No, they were just commenting on how low they thought it.
Gotcha. One of the,
Say one thing real
yes,
quick.
please.
So audience, when you're about to talk, if you just raise your hand so we can share with our colleagues online so they can hear us, because right now they only hear you.
Awesome. So we'll be doing that. Thank you. One of the easy ways was assigning topics with contemporary sources. That no longer works. The ChatGPT 4 Pro, the new Bard, which is now called Gemini, that's just a marketing thing because Bard failed miserably comparatively. So they just changed the name, and the new Bing can find up to 2023 sources. So just between us, that no longer works. Students don't know that, so you can still leverage that, but be aware that it's no longer as effective. Other things, using GPT detection tools, we've talked about that, discussion on ethics. So again, this presentation is in that site, so you can look at your pace, different techniques and approaches, and give you an idea. So some are easy to catch. We heard about that. That meme says, teen boys beat shit out of ChatGPT after it only gets them a C on assignment. That's actually happened on Reddit. Students are deterring other students saying, yeah, it worked, but it still screwed up my GPA. So again, the deterrence factor, and some are very obvious. If you can't see online, the sample essay begins with, "I'm sorry, but as an AI language model, I am not able to complete this assignment." They pasted the entire thing, probably at 11:59, and it's kind of easy to see that it was AI generated. So that was then, but this is now. So here's a sample 10-paragraph essay with APA, with text citations, a reference list, and it can even paraphrase to avoid detection. And there are some things like using a 1953 source. Your typical student is not using a 1953 source. But in the second round of asking it to write the essay, you can specify things. So sources only within the last 5 years, and it will do that. And you can even say for a college level education, and it will actually dumb down some of the results. So that's where we're at. And here's the other part. Students on Reddit have posted, "Never accept a teacher's accusation of catching you cheating." They say administrators don't know what they're doing. Principals at the high school, bosses and faculty cannot enforce it. There's nothing there, especially if they didn't put something on their syllabus. So be aware that that's spread as a workaround. Just deny, deny, deny. There's only one population that doesn't deny, and those are the ESL students because they don't know better. So be aware of that. So first section of this, let's take a look at class of 2024 to 2027. So these are our students now, and I'm going to talk about them as a population, their AI use, and a few strategies. So this is an excellent, excellent research journal paper that looked and examined what are students' expectations of what they see in AI. 8 areas were identified in higher ed. So this is good for administrators, principals, deans, faculties, and adjuncts, future teachers, and everything else. The 4 in highlight affect you directly. The 4 in highlight are here, and as you'll see in a little bit, are part of what the daily experience of AI is coming to be very soon, which is intelligent tutoring systems that personalize. That's already being developed at ASU with their deal that they made with OpenAI. Personalized learning. Now, this is good in many ways because it says to a student, "I didn't quite understand that concept. I didn't quite understand those examples." Create examples with sports. Create examples that have to do with what I'm interested in, and it helps them educate. So it's called para-translation, where you're translating concepts and metaphors and examples across disciplines, which enhances learning. So number 2, number 3, personalized learning is a good use and student expectation. Recommendation systems, choosing better books or better examples, and students grading and evaluation. So again, check out this research report. It is really good. Yes.
So for our Microsoft Office assignments, we have a learning module, and then we also then have the test where they take the test, it tells you what you don't know. Then you go in the training and it only gives you what you didn't get right, and then you go take the test again. But they have the option to skip those first 2 steps, and they do it all the time.
Yep.
So one of the problems is this isn't that different, is they have to allocate time and be motivated.
And with adaptive learning and adaptive exams, that's been around for a while, similar problems, similar issues. We'll touch a little bit on that, but that's a great point to bring up. Yes.
Now, I'm mostly familiar with ChatGPT. So, what sort of programs are they using for things like the tutoring and
Gotcha.
stuff like that? Like what?
I've got a slide coming in 6 slides.
Okay.
That's going to answer exactly that question. But that's a deep question. So what you're going to see now, 2024, 2025, and 2026, are specialized apps that only do one thing using ChatGPT. So that's a perfect answer for that. Other things about students. So class 2024 to 2027 are finding in this survey, they're choosing majors differently, thinking about how AI will be in their future. So something to consider. With, for example, nursing students, they're looking at like, well, okay, radiology, that can be outsourced. So how is that going to affect what I want to do? We'll talk more about those things, but again, this is a great survey report, great for checking out. Khan Academy is Khanmigo, yes. So they have their own version trained on their database of learning. So it's not trained on other copyrighted material. It has that Khan Academy feel to it, but it allows you to do the good stuff with their information, kind of like office hours. So the way to think about personalization is you have an instant assistant office hours based on what your discipline is. And it's a lot of prospect for that. 1,250 students surveyed. This was January 10th, so fairly recent. Most say, I think it's 3 out of 4 say their institution should ready them for AI in the workplace, and that means EDU. For those who are wondering about the administration ecosystem, digital transformation is now part of the budgeting. HLC and other accreditation bodies are considering what needs to be checked for regarding AI use. And NASPA, National Association of Student Affairs and various VPs, has it as a hot topic because of the various interests. And there's even research on Bloom's taxonomy revisited for AI world. So this is not going away, and it is part of not only 2024 to 2027 class of expectations, but the reality we live in. So I'm going to intersperse my personal recommendations along with some of the data because this is the stuff that I use. Been using it for 13 different sections, made plenty of mistakes, found stuff that works. And I also do this professionally, consulting on AI and cybersecurity. So I teach literature and comp, but I've taught 13 sections that in some way have AI literacy embedded, and it says so in the class notes. So related to that. ChatGPT, stick to that one for now. That's the same product that Microsoft invested in. It's the one that most students are using, the free version. So I think if you have to spend time learning one particular quirks, because they are different, and that's a reason you have to have your students cite which GPT they use. Each one has quirky differences. And we'll talk about how to do that citation. But I recommend for working with students, learn ChatGPT, play with ChatGPT. For personal use, Copilot, Microsoft Office, it's an app for free for now on your phone because they're looking for market share, is really, really good. And I'll show you some practical uses, but that's my personal recommendation. Yes.
Miguel, Megan is asking if you want to go back one slide, please. She's curious about the conversation around Bloom's and AI. I don't know if you go into that later or.
So
you wanna-
that's just from one university that made it an item to discuss for their all hands on deck school week of accountability. So that's the context of that. So you'd have to check that particular website, that particular university. But if it's happening there, chances are those conversations will come across. Great question, Megan. Okay, so I'm going to give you easy starts. For those who have not tried AI in the classroom, I'm going to give you 2 really quick, easy ways that have been fail-proof. So I'll talk about what didn't work, but I want to talk about 2 quick things, low cost, high impact, and build confidence for you and your students. The first one is called red teaming. Super easy. It's from cybersecurity world. That's where it's from. All it is, yep, conversation coming soon. All it is first contact with, let's say, ChatGPT in the classroom, split your class into 2. One is going to try to come up with great prompts. One is going to try to come up with a paper. One is going to try to do some brief assignment you have using it. And then the other class half is charged with finding what shows off as fake, what's hallucination, what's wrong, where are the weaknesses. Best strategy because it enlivens the students, it takes away the fear of some students, it leverages the expertise. And you will take note of who's the experts are so that when you see papers come in and they look a little too good, you go, you're the one that knew about all that. But it is the best for disarming a fear, and it's already been studied as one of the best ways to bring it into the classroom, high school or higher ed, and now they're looking at junior high all the way up there. Why? Well, and there are two reports. Highlighting uncertain content can build lasting awareness that AI-generated content may be wrong. They learn they can't trust the machine out of the gate by interacting with each other in a way that we can't prescribe. They have their doubts, or they fear us, or they think we're power systems. But if they go after it, each other, that participation works well for allaying fears, but also a deterrent factor. So there's lots of advantages of that. And there's a study already that using this leads to increased task accuracy. So they learn to question the AI just by discussing where it messed up. So that's a great takeaway, very easy.
That's one of the things I like about where we pretend to do a spreadsheet and it can't add the numbers up right.
And that's a perfect way to demo it. And if you start your first conversation in whatever discipline you teach with having a red team effort, it helps the atmosphere, allays the fears, and creates a deterrent factor. Yes.
It mentions biases that AI has. Are you finding like consistent biases or consistent issues when it's generating things? I'm not sure what sort of biases it's going to have if it's just pulling all information from the internet.
It can, but it's based on your prompt. So the newer versions, you can actually remove or filter out, or intentionally or unintentionally inject biases based on how you write. So that becomes a writing conversation, just like you would write for audience. Well, you're writing for bias detection in prompts. The other easy start is, instead of going and creating prompts to find answers, use free AI image generation. Why? It's fun. Students engage in that. It makes an excellent intro or icebreaker, and it demystifies some of it while also teasing it where its limits and powers are. So I've used it to create these little characters that I put into my online course, and engagement is up. It's a visual generation, Gen Z. They won't read, what's that TLDR? Too long, didn't read. They won't read an assignment, but I put one of these dopey, copyright free, because it's AI generated images of hamsters, and I saw on Canvas Analytics my engagement go up. So it's a great way, an easy way, before you start talking about GPT in written formats, to use GPT images. And Crayon is very easy. It's a non-US one. Bing Image Generator is now everywhere and free. And for your advanced ones, Midjourney. So images. And it also adds something which has been studied called hot cognition. Hot cognition finds that if you engage more senses, if you engage the visual senses, not just with Gen Z and millennials, it increases retention of materials. So a little AI image at the start, a little bit of it between sections of your lesson, or embedded into one of your videos as a meme or directly, actually increases retention. And that research has been found and supported. Okay, I presented at the AI Summit, and the biggest example of AI images was with nursing. So I did a project where we embedded with Nursing 172, clinical nursing, where students eventually go into a psych ward in a hospital. We found that using images, GPT images, improved student participation and camaraderie. It helped them express the realities of their fears about what nursing could be. So for example, in this activity, the prompt generated was, what is an ideal nurse? And you see all these happy images on the left. Then they said, what is that first day of work like after you're done working in a nursing clinical setting? And these were pictures generated that then nursing students talked about. So what did they see? They saw PTSD, they saw burnout, they saw abuse. You just tell them to say, what are your fears about being a nurse? on that first day. And then they can create anything, so they learn how to create prompts. And then you can have one or two, just have them enter directly that and react or reflect on that content. And then the third one, similar things. So this is, the prompt was nursing after a first year. How do you not take it home, or what are the side effects? And that include things like burnout, alcohol abuse, escapism. So using these images, and it was here tested in a class, the nursing class went into the clinical setting, Arizona State Hospital, and they found that after having prepped in group activities exploring that, they were not as taken aback by the reality of dealing with schizophrenic patients, violent patients, patients that were relating histories and stories that were extremely depressing or revealing. So it worked as a prep as well. And because it was images, it did not have the resistance from the visual generation that we have. It felt kind of more real. And because there's so much of this generation that does gaming, it connected on that level too. So it produced a lot of great effect. And there's tons of theory on that coming out. So these are 2022, 2023 saying images. So images as a first call, and it could be as simple as an icebreaker activity where you say, find an image of your mood right now, and then reflect on the one that's most accurate and the one that's way off. Anything like that is a great icebreaker. And then red teaming, looking at anything in data that way. So again, class of 2024 to 2027, I have because I've been doing this for a while, 39 different points of learning contact related to AI in an English 101 with business. We've converted things that get done in assignments without changing the learning outcomes. And lots of great stuff, but it's a rough road. These are my fails, misestimations, ineffective pedagogy, or lessons learned from 13 sections at 20 students a pop. These are the changes or ideas that worked and didn't work. So one of the biggest missteps was anything AI related in lessons before that red teaming activity. So very enthusiastically, a year and a half ago, first sections of this, here's how to do prompt writing. We're going to do this as a 10 or 15-minute activity. Scared the heck out of some students, was ineffective. I did a red teaming activity, letting the students run it, and it improved massively. So big lesson learned. All my stuff now in the first 3 weeks, red teaming and images. Then we get into what is actual prompt writing like? What is its connection? Another misstep, instead of an early homework, I use discussion groups. Again, letting the students drive the discussion. Someone would always bring something new and interesting that maybe I wasn't aware of. It's lower stakes, even if it's worth equal points to homework. It just has that online belongs to me versus teacher owns homework. And that helped. Misstep 3, GPT writing prompts versus images. Just told you about that. Misestimation. So I misestimated students' fear, especially developmental, especially English as second language learners, and just some students who were first generation. Estimated their fear of ChatGPT even as I showed them videos and walked through. So understand that you have a population that's going to do that. How do you balance against that? Discussion groups. Let the students drive that conversation. A lesson learned, GPT cheating, because these AI detection tools just aren't working anymore. They worked for about 4 months, to be honest. And then it's downhill to 30% on a good day. So a walkthrough. So I said, just like I showed you a sample GPT paper that was very obvious and then one that wasn't, I do a walkthrough. And here's the thing. Originally, I would do it first week. We're talking about the syllabus. Yeah, that wasn't as effective, I learned, if you do it then, and then you do it the day or two before your first major assignment. So it reinforced what they had already heard, and it did trigger a few more folks to think twice about doing that. And then an outright fail. So ChatGPT is outstanding for finding other ways of looking at ideas. So I started using them in office hours. And what happened? I kind of got too enthusiastic about the tool and put that first rather than looking at the student first as to what their needs are. So office hours, great use of GPT, as I'll show you some three specific solutions. But the first thing is try the traditional or manual. Whatever your problem is, look at it without GPT, and then as needed and as based on the comfort of the student, do that. These were 6 lessons, hard-learned lessons, but 13 sections, all full, so 20 to 22 students each. These were the 6 big things, okay? So does everyone have a real basic idea of how to do first steps on this? So now I'm going to talk about the context. So there are 3 types of AI. If you understand these 3, nothing can scare you, no article, no marketing material, and that's really important, can change your driving the decisions. 3 types of AI, and that's prompt writing. You hear prompt engineering, all of these things, and you hear some of the false marketing. Oh man, a $600,000 a year job as a prompt engineer. No, that's as a specialized coder, the equivalent of a political consultant who wins and only wins. So prompt writing is a better way, but prompt engineering is the technical. AI literacy. AI literacy is how does AI affect and impact society? And then 3, technical AI. Depending on your discipline, like computer science, is it? You're going to work with technical AI, coding, applications, plugins. But technical AI will still interact with you with how tools are marketed and sold to you. So let's start with prompt writing. And again, this can be referenced later in the PDF. There's a free Coursera course on prompt writing. Great to use. Pretty good if you are, let's say, medium to high skilled and learn fast. There's a really good article on prompt writing OpenAI if you're more of a self-driven, if you are more of a hands-on and reflective type of learner. That's a great way. And one of our own colleagues here, Marie Hunsinger, who's working on her dissertation, including AI impact in education, set up a pretty good Google site with a lot of the common questions and a second opinion. And that's one of the main things. So wherever your institution are, you have your AI gurus. Hello, how are you doing? Get a second opinion from someone in your discipline, because just like any other tool, it's very shiny. And I may recommend things that just work from my viewpoint, and getting that second opinion will enlighten versus EDU tech hype. Everyone is selling. Again, $3 trillion in competition. And that means a few $billion in EDU tech to be had. So again, this is all in the PDF, but it's a great way to learn about that. Here's a great way to think about it that worked for explaining it to students in a 101 and to some professional folks. A great way to learn that is everyone knows the 5 questions: who, what, why, when, where. For prompt writing, think of it as how, what, and how. So frame your questions as how, what, and how. So for those who can't see, how would you be able to determine or at least estimate the defense budget of the Mayan civilization? This was for a history student. So the first thing is have them use ChatGPT to ask how. How would it approach estimating the defense budget of Mayan civilization? And it will give you some categories, some sources, some techniques and ideas. Second part, ask the what. What is the actual thing? Provide an estimate of the Mayan civilization defense budget. And it'll get some really interesting connections that you may or may not know. So it determined, after giving you how it was looking at the problem, 10 to 20% of the total society resources were for military. Okay, and that's where you next go to your next how. The next how is, can you provide sources and process of thought on how you arrived at 10 to 20% of societal resources? So think of it as almost a journalistic interrogation of ChatGPT. You ask it, how do you know what you know? Okay, what's your answer? And how did you get to that answer? As opposed to, the who, what, why, when, and where. That's the best approach. Think of it as 3 rounds of prompt writing to get the best results with less hallucinations, which is just a fancy term for it made stuff up. For prompt writing, whatever your query idea is, ask it. More specific, the better. Think of it as you ran into somebody at a conference and you want to look at something specific. Then look at those 5 different categories and get even more specific. Ask ChatGPT, what is the purpose of this? Or role play from the point of view. What is the audience? Specify in your question the audience. Ask it what you don't want to see. So if you're asking about propaganda, you don't want to see anything that has to do with Brazil. Just to create more specific results, and then quantities. You can tell it, give me 10 examples, give me 4 examples. So ask away. It doesn't get tired. It does use resources, but that's another question. And then those 5 categories allow you to get better at asking prompts. Okay, we were talking about, so I'm going to talk about some real examples. So I teach Intro to Literature, the veteran experience. It's Intro to Literature. They don't have English 101 or 102 necessarily, so they don't know how to write. They have to, for this context, look at veteran-related things. And how many people have done something such as a movie review or something that shows that they've consumed or read something? Does anyone do anything like that, either in reading or in literature? Okay, anyone online? Yes, okay. So what I had them do is, okay, this is a scene I'm going to choose from your movie at this point. Now write a prompt that describes that scene in such detail that you can feed it to an image generator and it creates an image. So, and I won't tell you which war movie this was. This was their task. So they chose the movie, and I said, okay, 50 minutes in, what's the scene in this movie that you're watching? Write it with such detail that the AI understands what you are asking it. And this is what the prompt looks like. A cinematic color-wide shot of young soldiers in helmets with weapons in their hands on the Atlantic Ocean in World War II. Soldiers seen full body on a convoy ship, airplanes in the sky. And if you go a little bit down, in the style of Robert Zemeckis. So you can actually have it design a picture in the style of the filmmaker or another filmmaker. All the way down to, because someone knew a little bit of photography, how it should look. And that's the image created. This gives me 2 things. They actually read or watched the movie. They have to show and reflect on how they are writing narrative and description. So I'm meeting that goal as well, which is perfect for students that go to then English 101. And they have a good time picking what was right and wrong. So again, they diffuse the mysticism that AI is always right, and they learn that it's an interactive process. And that's where the second part is. So they do this on a discussion group, and other students say, this point was missed, this is good, why don't you try this? So they're sharing out about the movie, they're getting the other students interested, and other students are advising them and indirectly learning to write better descriptive paragraphs, better narration. And I also know they watched the movie because they can't just find an example.
Can they not though? Can they not just put in at 50-minute mark of this movie, write a prompt describing the scene? And then
They can't if it's a copyrighted movie, because copyrighted movies are banned right now from all 3 engines. So that's an excellent question, and why you wouldn't want to use something that is non-copyrighted or something that's in the public domain, because if it's in the public domain, or if it's ever been a Cliff's Notes, it can do that. But if it's a movie, or maybe a movie that just came out, they're stuck.
We have some stuff in the chat.
Please.
From Melissa, this came right before you went into this. She said, should I assume that it's hallucinating when it replies without sources? I've had it respond by saying it just gathered its information from various sources across the internet.
it's a telltale sign of hallucination, but it's also how they're not getting sued by every author and filmmaker that's ever existed. So you can't assume it's a hallucination because it's just how it protects itself from saying, oh yeah, I ingested every book that's on Amazon. And what it's actually trained on, by the way, is not the books, but every comment that's ever been on Goodreads, every comment and review that's ever been on Amazon, on Netflix, because that's not copyrighted. So that's why sometimes it understands things only superficially. It isn't reasoning and ingesting the material. It's seeing what did someone post. Kind of like if in the internet, if you go down on, let's say, a medical post and you look at the comments, you might find something there incredibly valuable, but 80% of it is garbage. Same way with training. Yep. It could be, but it's very unlikely. I mean, you'd have to have someone who's an expert prompt writer to be able to specify. And if you have someone that good, you're really just not going to catch them. But good question.
Sorry. So does that mean that all of the AI generated in material is like subject to the bias of like inaccurate articles posted? Like, how do we know that AI, if we're using it for something, is actually using reputable sources?
You don't,
That's
unless
how.
someone has told it that's a bad source. If someone who's used it, and that's how the interactive training, the reason they're giving it to you for free is so that you'll use it in ways that they didn't anticipate and improve the results. So that's the catch if you're using a free version. Another version they used it, create images for the Vietnam era song Fortunate Son, if anyone knows that one. And here's Edgar Allan Poe's Cask of Amontillado. Give me an image that summarizes what the story is about. So again, you can use images in various ways to represent stuff. And this is just from the nursing example. These are the benefits from theory of research on why images improves literacy, because it works with hot cognition, multimodal, multisensory, and a few other things. Now we're talking about limitations. So it cannot use copyrighted materials. And that's more and more so. So for example, that image of me that it generated at the first post, I said, find images of me that are already on the internet. There are plenty. Use that as your base and create me. And it said, can't do it, copyrighted images. So just be aware it can't create it, but it can approximate. So if you look on the right from The Simpsons, I was looking to generate that comic book with Grandpa Simpson. These are the results it gets. It gets in the style of, but it doesn't actually return. So there's another conversation you can have with your students on copyright. Image detection, AI image detection. This is my personal recommendations. There's tons of tools. There's one called Hive, and there's one called Illuminati. Hive is the best one that's out there for free right now. If you have something that requires checking image accuracy or reality, I like Hive. It actually tells you what was used to create it. The image on the left, so that's Till, the lead singer of a band called Rammstein. Okay, they had been accused of enticing fans to sexual exploits. And it turned out because when they played in Russia, they were very openly pro-gay in their approach. They featured a kiss and offended some folks. So Propaganda Machine actually generated images that were fake to then do a campaign to attack the band. And this is one of the actual images that was said, and a person was claiming this, and it was 99% fake. It was to inflame. So you can use this to detect. Does anyone know who the character is on the right? Well, is that what's happened to Taylor Swift there? Ethnicity swap. So again, this detected it. Not perfect. So this is a intentional faking of a moon landing picture. And The Hive detected it 67.9% likely fake AI. The other one is 3.6 likely AI. So just like regular GPT hallucinates, they can also not give you accurate results. But Hive is a great tool for detecting that. Citing. So what search engine, what GPT you use, Bing, Gemini, ChatGPT, has different quirks. You can have your students cite them when they create something original, when they refer to something, or when they're doing prompts. So APA and MLA, these are official versions of how to cite prompts. And the Grammarly one, also pretty good. This is an example of what a works cited looked for one of my students. The first one where it says crayon, that's an image. So it has the file name of the image that they were talking about, and it was a paper about propaganda and creating fake images. That one had Putin, Trump, and Biden all singing Beatles songs together. So what do you then do? You then have the description, the date, and most importantly, what tool you use. If you use it to summarize, a prompt to summarize, that's an example. And then the last one is an actual prompt. So require your students, if you allow AI use, require them to cite when they use it, and whichever format's preferred, but make sure that they understand that that's for legal reasons as well as ethical reasons. Okay, so that was prompt writing, big picture. Let's talk about AI literacy. AI literacy is interdisciplinary, and it's how it impacts society. So police use DNA from a crime scene to genetically recreate a picture and then ran it through facial recognition. That's an AI ethical issue. This, we're talking about dating apps. Well, you found that you paid for the pay version of Match.com, Tinder, or Grindr. You had extra check marks like only this ethnicity, only these characteristics facially. So what are those impacts on society? That's AI literacy. So think of those as topics related to how AI works that can be part of discussions, as opposed to directly using prompt writing. The biggest deal is ethical AI, and this is just a chart we use from the AI Summit of ethical questions and ethical dilemmas in AI, which include workforce disruption, as well as what movies do you get to see? So Netflix is, how many people here have Netflix? It only allows you, unless you know better, to get recommendations from 2,900 movies, even though its library is about 11,000. So an algorithm is making the decision of what you even see exists. That's an ethical question, ethical dilemma. By far the best source is the AI incident database. If you want to approach anything related to AI incident database, I think it's 7,800 articles that have to do with how AI has been abused or questionable things related to AI. And then you can have students write, reflect, consider what are the ethical issues, incorporate them in any way. But single biggest hit at the AI Summit was using the AI incident database as a tool to open up discussions about AI in society. And that's AI literacy. The third one is technical AI. Well, that's what it looks like. It looks like programming languages to create stuff. The one on the left is using programming language. Text, what do you need? You need a caddy, that's a robot that delivers your coffee. It creates a picture, which then you can tweak, which then you can send to a 3D printer. And then you can ask it to create specs. What would it cost? So that's technical stuff. Unless you're teaching technical, it doesn't directly interface with you, but it can, such as voice cloning. Voice cloning means I just need a minute to minute and a half of your voice that you put in that YouTube video that you shared with your students to make you say anything, that you're pro-Palestine, that you're pro-Israel, that you believe that the legal age of consent should be 11. 1 minute is all that is needed to make your voice with 80% accuracy. If you want 90 above accuracy, 20 minutes. And it could be anything. A wedding video, could be a YouTube video, could be a student recording you with your phone, with their phone. In fact, and I'm short on time, but I'll let you run this on your own. The links on here, the first one, how many people have heard of Hank Williams, country musician? How many people have heard of NWA? Hank Williams sings NWA songs. Yeah, in a tonality that cannot be detected as artificial very easily. It took the catalog and about 30 minutes of voice to be able to do that. So the other thing, so this is what I use. Let's see if I can, maybe I will pause this. So let's see if I can get that to go. Okay, Greg Fitzsimmons.
Anyway,
So Greg Fitzsimmons is a comedian. He's written for The Ellen Show, for Dave Chappelle. He's done a bunch of specials and done a bunch of things. Many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I had him do a cameo for my class on misinformation, disinformation.
your Professor Miguel Fernandez. As far as artificial intelligence, you're going to start political ads on the internet, deep dive. We haven't seen it. But you're going to start to see Nancy Pelosi on a tirade, say, improve, talk about it. But it's all coming. It's up to you. Roll it. Keep us safe. The world is in your hands. I'm the comedian. All I can do is challenge that to make it right. Use that.
Okay, so paid for that. Students love it. Connection, contemporary. I got a notice from him saying, you use the cameo, just want to make sure that from the writer's strike results, you're not allowed to take those 49 seconds and have me say something I didn't say. That's direct from the writer's strike, actor strike, one of the negotiated things. So there's your contemporary conversation for a good reason. You can use, it's called 11 Labs, and it takes maybe a minute to do a poor imitation, but 20 minutes, you can say anything from anyone's voice. So there's another example of technical AI, and this is used by TMZ, Lad Bible. These are the people who acknowledge using it, but it's been used most recently on the news to have Biden talk and say what he wasn't talking, as well as Trump talk and say what he wasn't talking. So technical AI will impact you indirectly unless you're doing coding as such. Here's a great use of it that I found incredibly valuable. So I use a tool called Otter AI that does captioning of audio, but this is now built into Copilot and Office 365 coming out. What does it allow you to do? It allows you to basically attend any online meeting like this and, not surprisingly, create a transcript. But where AI has affected it is it can do this. It can attend multiple meetings for you, create captions and transcripts of those meetings at the same exact time, and summarize it for you. And it can notify you when you've been mentioned or you've been tasked something or a summary of a meeting. So if, let's say, those 3 meetings, one of them addresses something I'm doing, it will send me a notification saying your name was mentioned regarding this. And if you choose to attend the meeting, the first thing it does is it gives you a summary of the meeting so far that you missed, and then allows you the chance to address it. So here it is. This is a sample transcript, but then I can press a button and it'll give me a summary of that meeting. And it'll give me a summary of that meeting fast, where I can still do something live. And here it says, what would you like me to know? So you're not attending this meeting live, and it's called MigBot, if you can see it on the corner there. It asks, do you want to be notified if you're mentioned? Do you want to be notified if someone has an action item tied to your name or your group? Do you want to be notified if a specific decision is made? And live tells you this. I used this when I was on sabbatical to be able to attend departmental meetings, and in this case, attend 3 conflicting meetings, all were good, gave me a great summary, then I could decide which one I want to read or have it talk to me in person. And in one of them, a special topic was mentioned, so sends me the notification, kind of like that alarm that just went off on the phone, and I tuned in live, and while I'm playing catch up on the screen, it's saying, this is what you missed, these highlighted points. So this is here for you to be able to do what you do better and to be informed as a lifelong learner. Okay? Question? Yes.
Thank you.
So how did it get recorded? Does somebody on the end of the meeting have to turn on a record mode?
So it'll ask you on their interface to schedule. You can use a calendar,
Uh-huh.
and it'll create a virtual window on your computer that hopefully you have it on, because it could, otherwise you can't get live notifications, and it will attend as you. It just won't necessarily alert you unless you ask it to alert you for things.
But that had to send a notice to the speaker or leader, and they had to turn that on.
Whatever your invite. So just like for those attending online now, you got an invite this morning, I could have MigBot attend the meeting, and I could tell it if someone mentions Miguel Fernandez or someone mentions misinformation, disinformation, send me an alert
Okay.
on the phone. So it allows you to be in more places than one. It allows you to efficiently use time.
So that's Microsoft, but my calendar is Google.
Otter AI works with Google, Outlook, I think one of the proprietary Apple formats. So it depends on what tool you use,
Right.
but it's easy to do once you get used to it. Okay, so AI here now, the state of AI. I'm just going to speed a little bit through these. This is just kind of related to the icebreaker in the morning. So will AI be taking my job? Well, some, but not really. It's going to make some parts easier, and it's going to make you replace some skill sets. Versus the other side that says it's hallucinating, or AI is a fad. So fad, not just the regular meaning, but funding augmenting device. It just means something that's going to cost somebody more money, and it's going to be processed to you. How does it go? Well, here's a student, what I would call a good student, critical thinker, participates. They basically said, I'm not super thrilled about AI, but if my teachers aren't using it, it proves that EDU is out of date. It proves that higher ed is not worth my time. And that's in the context, not of charter schools or politics, but in the context of Gen Z. I hop many jobs. It's got to be about me and serve my time. So that's one point of view. From a faculty member, a fellow faculty member, this addressed 2 things in a brilliant way. This was about ghost students, which are, there have been cases where 20 students enrolled in a Maricopa College online course were fake, were bots. It was a scam for financing. This is happening more and more for financial aid scams. So what does she do? She has a very brief teleconference meeting, and that works against bots. As good as they are, they don't respond well to live questions. They can still show up, and they will never turn on that screen because they can respond like ChatGPT will to you live. But if you require them to turn it on, you're going to get a view that something's up. And then the other thing was about changing some assignments rather than policing against AI. And some of the basics of the changes could be use an image, something that takes snapshots of sources, anything that costs them time, because it used to be use sources from 2023. Perfect, not anymore. The new version of AI can do that. I'm going to run it through a detector. You can show that to your students, but it's not reliable. At 30% reliability, and then on Reddit, they're saying, oh, it's only 30% reliability. Just get your mom and dad to argue with your teacher, and they're going to have to let it go, or you're going to be rich from a lawsuit. That's shared. So you have to use other ideas. Is it everywhere? AI's big collaboration with ASU is going to change the landscape here, because it means every student will have all the good stuff and all the bad stuff I had at full strength provided for free. That's going to set up their expectations as they enter the workforce, as they become our teachers here. Versus ChatGPT can't write. It's cosplay of writing. Kind of true, but you would say with the attention span now, we're kind of at the cosplay of writing with a lot of things anyway. Students generationally don't value reading as compared to multimedia. And that's why those GPT images are a great way to work around that and bring back the skills. The prescription has become good ideas assignments. Yep. So here's one point of view. I had them look for memes about what they think about AI use. And one of the students said, the Never AI folks at your college are basically the Just Say No campaign against marijuana back in the Nancy Reagan days. It's like that cost $1 billion to make sure no one was using marijuana. We're kind of not getting a lot of returns on that. Versus, again, the cosplay. It's not writing. And what made this article interesting was they said and warned, be careful of administrators using this to further reduce the pay of adjuncts and to further denigrate libraries, tutoring centers, and tutors. So there's something to it. It's not Ludditism, but there's no real easy way around it. Now, we had talked about specialized tools. That's why I told you we're going to wait a little bit. So here's an example that you can see on your own, 20 different specialized tools. They use GPT technology, but they use it in specific ways. So one of the biggest deals is, well, I'm going to require them to just use journals, use podcasts, use great sources. You can actually get a specialized ChatGPT flavor that only works with My Science Pub, the free journal site. There's another one that connects technically illegally to JSTOR. So you're going to be seeing tools that are specialized to sample some of those specialties and see what they could impact. There's an AIforthat.com. That's basically a clearinghouse of specialized use that's great for informing you. And there is good use for some of these tools. Goblin Tools is for parents and allies of autistic kids. And it is found that ChatGPT can be used in ways to increase the interaction and functionality because it detects patterns, it detects shortcuts to enable that. And one of their best tools allows autistic children and autistic teens to test scenarios. What should I be doing if I want to make friends? And then it'll give them suggestions and ideas, and then they ask again. So it allows them to do scenarios. One of the most interesting ones related to that, they're using ChatGPT to help folks with advanced stage dementia and Alzheimer's. They're embedding this into pictures, into holograms, and into toys that will interact and learn what works and doesn't work for particular Alzheimer's patients or someone with dementia to keep them engaged at whatever frequency is best for them. They can even simulate family members or members who've died, and they never get tired of hearing the story. So there are good uses. Goblin.tools, and there's an AIforthat.com. I think these 4 about the state of the nation of AI use are great articles. If you read those, spend 25 minutes, you're pretty good shape. You're in pretty good shape about understanding the landscape of AI in EDU. And again, these are all in the PDF. So this is an interesting point. So there is a teacher potential misuse for AI. So you can generate pretty good comments on every homework and spend 5 minutes seeding ideas of how it should comment, and then grade 30 papers or provide 30 responses. So that's actually one of the discussions now, at least in my department, for the charter. There are potential abuses. So for example, let's say I'm a teacher and I get paid per course teaching. Well, half of it is interacting with students, maybe 3/4 of that is interacting with students, grading. I could teach 26 sections because I don't have to do that. I have an automated assistant, a TA slave who learns how I've responded in the past. I just have to feed it my previous responses on Canvas or wherever, and it generates custom responses to questions, custom analysis of essays. Yep.
Then it needs to be pasted into Canvas. So I keep seeing all kinds of things talking about having it remember all my answers and all this, but there's no tie with Canvas.
For $3.99 on there's an AI app for that. There's an instant tool that will web scrape your answers, paste it into Canvas, Blackboard, not WebCT, one of the other ones. So just a heads up, this is going to show up more. Renee?
This relates to grading. Megan asks, this presentation, well, she states, this presentation has had some great ideas for assignments. Would you be open to sharing what a rubric might look like for some of these assignments?
Absolutely, and I can post that in the follow-up page. And I will show you some assignments that I actually use, just so you can see it. But I actually do have a syllabi statement and a rubric that takes into account AI ethics and uses it in a way that they have to sign off on it. Which goes to the next part, and we're approaching a little bit more. AI policing. So this was actually one of the questions that was posted on the site. So the American Associations of Colleges and Universities had a webinar, and they have a really good AI training, 4 sessions for $299. And I got to tell you, I saw one of theirs, and it's really good. Pack back, if you look up on YouTube, same level of sophistication, just doesn't have the branding. But one of the things they did identify is the ones that you will catch the most with bad prompt writing are the ESL and ELL students. And they're the ones that, if you're looking at from an equity point of view, just haven't had the skills in the language to be able to write prompts that work around. So automating, catching, these are the bulk of the students you're going to catch, not necessarily the bulk who are actually using it. AI detectors, again, we talked about them not being detectable, 33% accuracy. Automated policing won't work. By far, the best one out there is GPT-0.me. And it's great for a walkthrough. Demonstrate how a crappy paper gets caught. But again, they're sharing on Reddit, oh, your teachers have no legal basis they can do this. Just satellite parents the heck out of it, and they're going to let you go. And the administrators are burnt out. Other ways, so in the black is a scrambler. What that does is you put your results from a GPT-generated paper, and it scrambles in a way that can't be detected. So it adds another layer of complexity, and you also have to be careful. I said GPT-0.me. If you go to GPT-0.com, someone has set up a site that always says it's human writing. It's a student hacker who set up a fake site. And if you go to GPT-0.org, it injects about 14 computer viruses into your machine. So just say no applies to this. And these have been shared on Reddit and other places. Also, there's great sites like this that tell you exactly how to bypass and give you the tools to do it. So it has a slider where you rate your teacher for how proficient are they with AI detection, and then it tells you do this, not that. So that's kind of the lifestyle now.
Why are they going to Reddit?
It's just what's popular. If you don't like TikTok and you want to read, it's just the best thing out there for that. So this is my conclusion after a bunch of times. You need to build GPT intuition. Most of you have it with normal methods of teaching. Something, oh, this student, barely at a TikTok level of functional language now has an academic paper that could get published in 6 different countries in 6 different languages. Well, here's probably the equation I think works best after doing this for a while: exposure. And 1 to 3 hours of using ChatGPT gives you a good start. It's a novelty phase. And if you see the side on the left, those are kind of prompts when I first started. Like, translate Beatles songs into the Klingon language. And it did it flawlessly. It's novelty. It's a toy. 1 to 3 hours will give you some familiarity. 5 hours of playing around with prompts in any way you see fit puts you in control and allows you to understand any of the articles you read. So an article pops up that says ChatGPT is doing this. After 5 hours, you kind of intuit, okay, that's how this would affect my students. This is how it would impact my assignments. And 10 to 30 hours of playtime, you'll be able to sniff out GPT when it shows up anywhere. Image, paper, you have a applied creative tool use of mastery. What's the author with the 10,000 hours tipping point? Yes. Malcolm Gladwell? So this is like 10 to 30 hours is kind of that Malcolm Gladwell-like tipping point for a good level of experience. And again, you can ask it anything. And if you see on the far right, these are now kind of prompts I look for. So we were trying to justify e-portfolios. Is e-portfolios a waste of time for students in non-fine arts? Well, asking and deciding on what goes into that prompt were really interesting discussions that I did in person and then translated into others. Native inspired Tai Chi. So we were talking about cultures. So we took Tai Chi moves. What country is Tai Chi created from? Is it China? China. And we said, well, change it so that the terms and the moves and the connectiveness to the concepts are centered on Native American practices. Fascinating stuff, because you look at the names and you go, okay, there's the parallel, or there's the central human core across cultures, and also different things. So it started to get more specific about different tribes and their connections to the desert, connections to the mountains. So they're interesting, creative questions that get asked as a residue of 10 to 30 hours of practice, plus walking through a sample allows you to have almost the same ability as the old detectors. These are just tells, like in poker. They're tells that a paper has been GPT'd. Okay, has anyone seen any of these 9? Is there anyone online who would like to pick one of the 9 and talk a little bit about it? And I'll start with that. So,
And you can unmute yourself if you want to talk.
perfect. I'll start with, yeah, please.
I've found students use it in biology. I ask them, to write on a topic and they will include concepts that we have not covered in class and that you wouldn't cover until you were in a higher level class. And they just throw it in casually and that's how you know. There's no way they knew that.
And does that like trigger an intuit reaction like, okay, we never talked about.
Yeah, that's how I caught some students last year. It was like, there's no way you would have that firm of a grasp of that topic at this point in your biology career.
So I would call that unjustified grasp of a topic.
Mhm.
Another one, number 9 is my favorite, fantastically polished but meaningless. It is, call center level trying to get you to believe that it's theirs, but there's something ultimately empty. These are the 9 that, especially if you've used GPT for a while, can give you some idea. What was the name of the organization that offered AI training? It's in one of the earlier slides, so again, you can access that through the PDF. No changes in voice or tone, and also hedging, overly hedging. Apparently, the student has, no, make sure to consider the bias on this side. Magically, they're super concerned about covering all the sides. That's a real easy sign of GPT.
Mhm.
Lots of cliches in the writing. Matter of fact, I started to notice the same cliches in a lot of writing, and all of a sudden I realized that all of those people with the same cliche had used ChatGPT.
Excellent way to do that, because GPT is the normal content, the normalized content. Comments off the internet is what it's trained on. Yep.
Sharon made an observation that most of these also simply indicate poor writing. So she leaves comments that the writing is inauthentic and it is scored accordingly.
There you go. So you can allow them a little compassion and leeway if you allow rewrites by saying it's got problems, the writing. You don't have to ding them for it, but if that's your policy, of course you can. So let me talk about quick first day preps. So you have to have the conversation. And I use, this is a prompt I put into Bing Image Generator. Not the most flattering picture of my passion in teaching, but it starts them laughing and it shows how deep you can get in a prompt, and it uses image generation. So you can use that as an icebreaker or warmer in intro. Really works great for that first day. Always talk about the part of the syllabi statement that you have decided. For Maricopa right now, legally, they have a general statement, the one that begins with the World Economic Forum. That's so they don't get sued. That's compliance. But now they've added, from work of the AI task force, 3 possible boilerplate statements. I do not allow AI use at all. That's a hard one to enforce, and it usually comes back to bite you. I allow AI use in supporting documents in this way only, as explained in the course. That's pretty good because it says only in supporting documents, not in final form, and that's pretty flexible. And then the other one specifies a % amount. I can't see any use of that. But first day, talk about that. So in the presentation we did for the writing tutors, they're trained now to look when they ask for student help, and it looks like they use GPT in some way. They're trained to ask, did you read the AI statement in the syllabus? Is it allowed? So this is a good conversation starter, and it's reinforced by tutoring and other things. If you want to look for discipline specific, this is a great resource. Lance Eaton, academic futurist AI guy, has found and listed as a Google Doc 117 different syllabi statements across 70 different disciplines, allowing in specific language to that discipline or not allowing AI use. So you go to this Google Doc, you search for your discipline, you look at some of the language use, and you will automatically know some of the violations. You'll go, oh, that is perfect for my class, or you go, okay, that's too draconian for my class. So you can personalize. And here's some examples. And as you can see, it's 117 battle tested, which means this course has successfully used that AI statement for at least a year. So you know you're using language that's tested. Okay. Approaching the end times here. So 3 ways to use prompts directly in what I call office hour use. And one is to improve understanding of an assignment. So you can use it for students to take agency in deciphering an assignment. Works really good for ESL, works really good for technical majors where they're still in developmental stages. So literally you can ask them, convert the following assignment instructions into a checklist. That works gangbusters with adult learners and veterans. And what do? The student just takes the assignment description, the instructions, pastes it, and it converts it into a checklist, which works better for some. The second one, explain the following assignment instructions in Spanish using non-technical terms. So it reinforces for a non-English speaker what they're learning in a course without the jargon becoming a hindrance. Really easy way to do it. 1 second. Personalized paratranslation just means reframing something in a way that makes sense to the students. So an example is explain the process of identifying agenda in propaganda through the language and use of sports metaphors. So we were talking about misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda, and I've got my student athlete just not getting, spacing out, popping up the phone. I say, hey, You got your phone out right now. Ask it in the terms of sports. And this is what they got. The terms and the key players of using sports. So recognizing the players. Propaganda, there are key players who drive the message. Okay, so those are the superstars. Team uniforms and symbols. Protagonists often employ symbol, slogan, and imagery to create a sense of unity and identity. Okay, so now you understand how propaganda works. It's the people cheering for one team. It's the hooliganism that comes from that. And the student understood it better. And they drove the conversation. And then the last one is really useful, is about finding good sources for projects. So journals go to for academic topics, but here's a student who wants to do a project on improving drifting car competitions, drag racing drifting cars. Prompt lists the names of journals that could provide proven data to be used in a project to modify a car for successful drifting car competition, and it worked. So 3 ways that students can own the power of ChatGPT to translate in a way that is personal and valuable. And now I'm going to show you the one easy assignment is regards to arguments. So finding arguments for a 102 paper, finding arguments for a write-up or for justifying a budget in some classes or justifying a software choice. This was unanimously from students. In fact, 100% of students said this was something they would use again as a tool for finding arguments. And it's literally that. You have them plug in their thesis in an argument, but how do you keep a standard? How do you make sure it's not cut and paste? So here's an example. Obesity in America is directly due to poverty. Not the world's best thesis, but workable. But as you can see the results, these are really low quality results. Same student forced to play with it because they only got 2 out of 20 for not showing critical thinking, for not paraphrasing, for literally plugging it in. The second side shows a choicing, a ranking, and a thinking and processing of what arguments could work. So that was enabled by the tool. They felt comfortable using it. The one thing, they have to declare that they use ChatGPT. So they have to cite it because I need to know, and they need to understand that they're allowing it. And they have to paraphrase. So here's an example of ChatGPT Instant. It has 2 or 3 words and then a colon and then an explanation. As soon as you see that, that's AI generated. That's just a structural thing. So this student is like, oh man, this is great. I got 20 out. No, you got 5 out of 20 because you aren't ranking it, you aren't paraphrasing, you aren't screening it. Now, what would you screen it for? By the way, this is an interesting one. So big bonus. This technique worked great to get a DRS disabled student to interact and look at themselves with agency. So how can you use AI, or how is AI impacting disabilities? They were really moved when argument 4 said AI can be used for job matching and virtual job coaching, because they thought, well, I've got traumatic brain injury. I'm not going to be able to handle an interview. And he figured, he saw this, he saw an article where someone used it to train with interview questions that were genetic to the job description, created. And it was a learning moment that said, hey, I'm not disabled first. There's hacks and ways around it. So this was a tool that he owned. So it wasn't anyone telling him, this is what you can do with your life. So there are values to it. You can have them. How do you get rid of the, I just cut and paste it? Say find arguments, then screen them for a purpose. So if you were looking to do policy change, it gave you 12 arguments. Do those 12 work? Which ones don't? Why? Critically choose and change. For a career interest, choose and change. So you can use it in ways that work. So, and I know we're going to be down to 5 minutes, so let me just kind of give you the, since we have mostly online, this is the FPG part, the homework on your own or group activity. So this is the self-reflection part on using what you've seen. And obviously it's open notes. You could just open the PDF to help you do it. But here are, so I used it in 39 different ways in English 101. And you can use it to role play. You can use it to create a generate a comic book based on something. So that's an alternative media output. You can use it to illustrate comprehension. Here are 7 different ways, 7 activities with minimal impact on your time that you could add AI to what you already do. So adapt, not force AI into an assignment, but adapt. So my recommendation to you, and again, because we have mostly online, we won't spend time doing that in groups. Try these. Choose 1 or 2 and look at the example and see what would work as a great way to embed AI literacy. Talk about ethical issues. Play around with prompts, either visual or writing. 7 activities that I've done for 2 years now among 13 sections. So they've been battle tested, and they not only work for my style of teaching, can work within the parameters of what you use. So that's the activity part for the FPG, which you have to sign out for on here in a little bit. And now for the last bits of time, that's my bio. So first contact with AI was 2020. Second contact was working with the Aspen Institute, and that's where the article is. And that was in 2021, so that I was able to create 13 sections, 4 of those which were before GPT went. So I've had a lot of experience, and as you've seen, a lot of missteps and failed, but all of these 7 activities have survived testing by 13 sections. So that's your assignment. Now I want to just leave it open for a few questions before we shut down. So Q&A, do we have anyone here and online?
So for the last topic you talked about, I lost the big picture of how you were giving that as assignments for the students, or were you telling them what in your office hours, well, go do this? How did the initiative start that they were?
Gotcha. So the arguments, part of a basic 102 for me, it's prescribed, it's an essential core course component, didn't change a thing. I just gave them the option along with the standard lessons to use ChatGPT, walk them through it, and showed them examples of pretty good, horrific, fixed, pretty substantial, and aha moments. So the idea is adapt. Don't change your stuff. Adapt and figure out a way. 1 activity to start with of those 7 is more than enough. And once you build GPT intuition, you don't have to worry about them cheating as much. And once you build GPT exposure, you'll understand articles in your discipline that show you new ways to do it, colleagues who are doing activities that you've always done with an AI component, and how to eventually, hopefully when you're getting paid to do it, alter your course to include without denigrating anything that you've already done before. Okay, any other questions?
Now, this is a little bit specific to like biology and the science fields. You said that it's not able to access copyrighted materials. What about like scientific articles? Those are usually behind journal paper paywalls. So can it?
So it becomes an
access that?
ethical question. I think it's called Sci-Hub, which is a pirate site of, I think, 7 million journal articles with no paywall. There are 2 GPTs I'm aware of, private ones, one that was, and they're not in the US because of copyright issues, that can go directly to those. And I guarantee you this year, JSTOR at least is going to have some kind of interface or some kind of deal to provide professional sources as the training only for various things. And the sciences are driving that.
Okay, but at this point, like if you were to generate, something, it couldn't actually access those articles.
Correct.
Not
Correct.
even to reference them?
It could reference them, but it could not, it would reference either a link or an abstract,
Okay,
but it would not reference the actual, unless it's from a free, Arvix or one of the databases out there that are not. And you're seeing a lot more with zero-day publishing and preprints.
Mm.
So there are a few preprint sites that are open format, especially in the sciences. Those are being used to train, just not there yet.
like ResearchGate, which like you can join as a professional and post your scientific articles that you've had published. Can it access that since that's something you have to like create a login for?
It can, but it's still illegal.
Oh, okay.
So that becomes the ethical question. It can be done. It has been done, especially in other countries where, if you're talking about sciences, medicines in places like India and others, an example I can give you is in Africa. There are about 4 or 5 gates just to avoid paywalls because the idea is learning has more value than the current pricing of articles. So illegally, yes. Soon legally. I think that's about it on the question sides. And again, all of this stuff on that one site, aifpg.htm, new classroom /aifpg.htm. This PDF, all the links, supporting reports, all of it there. Thank you for coming. This is extracted from a much bigger thing. And thank the CTLA and the Gratitude folks who, are manning the computer and contacted me and said this would be a valuable thing to present here as well as on Williams in last August. So thank you and good luck.